I mean, in the day, we still lost both series. Whether it's 7 games or 4 games. But this one's definitely tough. Nobody want to go out. 0-4. But it's definitely a learning experience.
You talked about patience last night. You said this summer is going to be, where I'm going to need a lot of patience, and it's going to be a long summer. What do you mean in terms of patience for yourself?
I'm just sitting. I mean, not basically sitting, but just have to wait to get back out there on the court to redeem yourself. Especially going out like that. That's what I meant by the patience and getting back to the game that you love and getting back out there on the court and make better of how we ended.
Did that anxiety even start last night? The want to like do it over again?
Yeah. Especially for me, it's tough to realize now I got to go home, and sit, and still watch other teams play. But like I said, it's a learning experience.
To get to the next level, what do you think might be the missing piece for this team?
We're not far away at all. I think we just missing one or two things. A couple more veterans. Not a lot. We definitely don't need a lot. We proved that early on this season that we was a talented team. We just need to get over that one little hump that keeps blocking us.
And his name was brought up so much. Is that Paul Pierce kind of guy? Because you clearly see the effect it had on Beal.
Yeah, most definitely. Guy like that is be definitely big just for his knowledge of the game, the experience that he brings. It could be various things. So that's a great example, though.
Hey, DeMar, you and Case have sort of grown together. You've been here for as long as he has. What do you think about changes he might have to tweak with this group for so long?
I know Case get a lot of flack, and then Case is a great coach. I got to give him credit. He pushes day in and day out. Like I said, it's not. It could be one little thing. It's just like a Rubik's cube. You just got to find the right side to get everything else going, and I'm pretty confident they'll figure it out.
A lot of the fans that were standing outside and watching in Jurassic Park last night, and they were saying they felt this was kind of a step backwards for the team. Is that concerning when you hear the fans saying that this team's going in the wrong direction?
Nah, I'd like to reassure them that it's definitely not. We just, that last couple of weeks of season going into playoffs is definitely tough for us just to, get our rhythm, get back to the style of basketball we was playing in the beginning of the season. I hate to bring up bad luck, but, we was just in a tough spell that was tough to get out of. And, by any means, we definitely don't want the fans to feel let down or anything like that, because best believe we're going to work extremely hard and be better next year.
Kyle playing hurt?
Yeah, we always playing hurt. We was all playing banged up, but, like I said, that's not an excuse. I'm pretty sure everybody on the Wizards was banged up and hurt as well.
What do you think turned the team from the 24-7 to the last half of the season?
I'm not sure. I can't pinpoint exactly what it may be, but whatever it was, it was tough to get out of the slump that we was in and really get our rhythm back. And our confidence was always there, but it was like karma caught up with us. Like we did something wrong 2-3 months ago, and karma was just biting us back in the ass for some reason. But I don't know.
Patrick was talking about how close the group was off the court, and that when they got on the court, that you guys just couldn't shout each other's names. You couldn't find that kind of togetherness there. I don't know if do you feel that same way, and what do you think the reason was for that?
I could see that, especially how close we was off the court. And sometimes, when you close with somebody, sometimes when a situation happens, you be timid to, yell at a friend or do something small like that. That could have played a part. But we gotta be better than that. We gotta understand if if we close off the court, no matter what's being said to one of us on the court, it shouldn't matter. If it's you getting cussed out, be in the right spot, then you gotta be able to accept that. And that's the next step for us to understand if we want to be an even better team.
And that, I guess, is the reason why you look at a veteran, because those veteran guys don't have any problem
Right.
with getting on somebody.
Exactly.
What was it like in the locker room after the sweep? Or what was the conversation like between the players?
It was tough. It was tough. Just the reality of it. Knowing that it's over. It seemed like yesterday we was in Vancouver getting ready for training camp. It was tough. Especially looking around. You look at these guys as your brothers. You've been through, everything with them. Every single day, they become your family, and the reality of it was just tough knowing that it was over, and some guys may not be back, and just the whole reality of it was tough.
Do you think this team was missing a guy like Paul Pierce? He said you guys didn't have the it factor. Could you have used something like that in this series?
What's the it though? I still don't understand what it is.
Himself. At the press conference, he said, "I'm it."
Oh, that's what he said. I don't know. I don't know. That it's gonna be confusing for me for a while. So I don't know.
Could you use a player like Paul Pierce? You think that would have made the difference for this team?
Paul Pierce is a future Hall of Famer, and you can't find too many future Hall of Famers just to pick up one day off the street and just put on your team. But most definitely.
First year coming into the season with this kind of expectation, what do you think you learned about playing under that kind of pressure?
I don't think it's really pressure. I look at it more as of you got to have a much more better understanding to what's at stake. Going into the season knowing we was going to make the playoffs, and not getting comfortable with that. We got to look at the bigger picture and getting in the playoffs and making something happen. Last year, we was fighting for to get in the playoffs. Next time around, we got to understand we got to use the season to continue to get better and be the best once playoffs start. I think that's one thing that I learned, this far with my 2 playoff experiences.
I think the early success could have given a false sense of
Oh, yeah.
confidence.
Yeah. And I think, last year we had that chip on our shoulder of the not knowing. So we left every single thing out there on the court. We was used to, the tough times and adversity and fighting through it, starting off so great, so fast, and even winning when I was out the 21 games, you kind of overlook like, we can't lose, and unconsciously, you don't think about the tough times once they hit, and now you got to figure out things on the go, and that's where we was at. And I think that's when we got caught in a slump where we began to try to figure out ways to get back to how we was playing, and before you know it, it was too late.
DeMar, you're convinced that it's sort of tinkering rather than bold changes that need to happen in this team?
Yeah, most definitely. I don't think, just because we went out the way we did, it's definitely tough, but, just smarter, small adjustments, I think, is all we need. We got the talent, like I said, just a few things and we'll be all right.
DeMar, a lot of teams have had success. You guys had, so much of the offense ran through yourself, Kyle, Lou. It seemed to maybe catch up to you a little bit in the playoffs. They really kind of took that away. Would you be open to a more ball-sharing type offense going forward? Do you think some adjustments that way need to work?
I think we did a great job still sharing the ball. We had a lot of great games where we shared the ball. I just think, we just had our moments where we got stagnant a little bit and we settled a lot, but I think overall we still a great, at sharing the ball. We just gotta understand, you know, we can't settle for jump shots so many times on fast breaks, or, you know, be more of a, you know, 1, 2, 3 option team instead of, you know, just going to the first option and shoot. You know, just really milking the whole offense and taking what the offense gives us, really.
We've heard a lot about how, you know, close you guys are off the court and stuff. How do you feel about the prospect of losing some of the, you know, marquee players of the team this year to free agencies?
I mean, if you're not used to it now, being in the league, you know, I don't know what to tell you. It's just part of the game. You know, it always sucks to see somebody leave, or you never know, it may be a better situation for them to leave or whatever it may be, but, you know, it's part of the game. And, you know, the friendship that you build with a teammate while he's your teammate, you know, that becomes bigger than basketball, but, you know, it's part of the game.
Do you feel that with this group, do you hope there aren't major changes? Because we've already seen Masai. Masai has no problem if he wants to make a bold move.
Right. I mean, still a business at the end of the day. It's our job. You know, you could feel or, you know, react how you want, but at the end of the day, it's still our job.
You said preseason, nobody would be satisfied with a first-round loss. You said going into the playoffs, same thing. Like, how much does it bother you to be sitting here like April 27th and talk about it being over?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna bother me for a while. Honestly, it's a sickening feeling, you know, for me personally. But you know, that's just more motivational fuel for me to, you know, become better and, you know, find better ways so I could be a better teammate, better leader, you know, come next year, so we wouldn't be sitting here, you know, the end of April.
This is a pretty wide open question, but was there a lesson to be learned from this year, the way things went?
Most definitely. No matter how many games we win, we could win 40 games in a row. We got to stick at what got us there from training camp. You know, we can't get comfortable. We can't be satisfied. We can't be happy. We got to understand the previous game don't mean nothing. We got to move on to the next day and figure out ways to continue to keep getting better. Not just if it's coasting or if it's just, you know, like I said, being satisfied. We have to keep pushing. We always could be better than we was the day before, and I think that's the lesson I've learned, and I think everybody on this team and the coaching staff has learned, is we got to stick to the script.
Have you talked about that, like, with your teammates? Like, you're telling us the same thing
Yeah, for sure. You know, and these discussions we done had as a group, and, you know, with coaches and players, you know, most definitely.
Did people go off the script, DeMar? I mean, did they vary from that message? Did they?
I wouldn't say they varied, you know, but like I said, you know, everybody gets behind you and expectations grow once you win it. You kind of forget about the dark side and the tough times that got you there once you win it. And I think, you know, that's what we gotta keep in mind. You know, as much as we winning, it still could go bad at some point, and we got to understand that. We got to never be satisfied.
Do you think, even though it's still so fresh, that this might be a good thing for this team, just getting handled?
Yeah, I think so, because I tell you right now, this feeling right now sucks with every single person that's in that locker room, and it's going to motivate all of us to be that much better, so this won't happen again. Whoever we face, if we in the same position again next year, I guarantee you it won't happen again.
DeMar, the frustration and disappointment how the season ended, do you think going into training camp that gives Dwayne Casey a better platform to get his message across?
Yeah, for sure. Because, you know, for me personally, I've been here through the tough times, and I remember every year that I came back after, you know, the tough seasons and the losing season, I wanted to be 10 times better for this organization that next year. And everybody went through this playoff series together, they gonna know what it's gonna feel like, and gonna work extremely hard from day one to be better. So we, like I said, we won't be in this situation again.
Pierce was pretty active on social media after the win yesterday, posting some pictures, like a picture of him
mean, I care less. Social media is for reasons like that. You know, the amount of stuff we see on social media, who cares? The stuff that's been said to me since this playoff series has been over, who cares? I could care less. I mean, I really don't care about it. You know what I mean? I don't get caught up into it. You know, it's just a social media picture. I got 7-year-old kids sending me pictures of me like I'm crying or something. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
Hey, DeMar, talk about team meeting old heads and guys who've been around. At what point do you become that guy here?
I think, you know, honestly, I just had this conversation, you know, with Case, and I think this, you know, I always figure out ways how I could be better, you know, as an individual. And I think going through this process this year and the ups and downs of me had to deal with an injury, really had to focus in on getting myself back healthy, to having my ups and downs, to fighting back, to being a player that, you know, I was in the beginning of the season, really matured me to help me understand how to be a better leader. And losing this playoff series and understanding things I could have did better or I could have said definitely helped me mature to be that leader, especially going in next year. And, you know, I look at it now, next year will be my 7th year in the league, and, you know, I have no choice but to be that, you know. And I think that's something that really pushed me over the edge to want me to be that leader even more.